Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Well,
We are recording. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out to meet with us today. I'm Joshua Williams, one half of the Rural LISC Digital Opportunity team. And I have today with us, we have Teresa Sladick with Northstar Digital Literacy. Did I get that right, Teresa?
Lodic,
Sladick. Okay. Phonics.
like coleslaw. 95% of people say
Yeah.
Slatic.
Um, well, thank you for being with us. And just so you know so you know who's in the room with us, Teresa, we have our digital opportunity for East Texas cohort. Seven libraries that are leading digital opportunity workforce in East Texas. In the
Great.
room with us. We have some fellow team members with Rural List that are in the room with us, and we also have we expanded the invitation to our digital opportunity network. So everybody in the room is here all for digital literacy, digital opportunity,
Okay.
and they're going to attend these sessions and take what they learn and apply it to the organization. So I will stop rambling now and I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. And hello, everyone. It's great to see you on this Thursday afternoon. I am Teresa Slodick with Northstar, and today we're going to be looking at, so this is the first of a three-part training, and I like to always start by kind of giving you the overview of what you have access to in Northstar. There's a lot in there, which is great. Just know that, as you're thinking about your organization and the goals of your organization and the people that are coming to your organization, you're going to decide what best fits your needs, their needs, your staffing, workflow, those kinds of things. So you have access to everything, and of course, you're going to choose what makes sense for you to use or not. All right, so the first thing to know is that Northstar is part of a nonprofit called Literacy Minnesota. And Literacy Minnesota, we've been around for, I think it's 53 or 54 years now. And we are in the field called adult basic education. And that means that what we do is we help adults who are learning literacy. So it could be they're learning English, it could be they're working on their reading, their writing, their math, like towards a high school equivalency. Maybe they're working on citizenship, and then of course digital literacy with North Star. So not only do we do that at our own schools here in the Twin Cities, I am in Minnesota, if you didn't guess, um, but we also do that statewide. So we do training statewide for organizations, for their volunteers and teachers, and have for many, many years. So we do have a lot of resources that are free on our website there. So if you are working in these other fields of literacy, and of course digital literacy, you can feel free to look there. So if you went to Literacy Minnesota and looked at resources, you would find it. And I would say on there, Northstar is a subscription, but 99% of what's on there is free. So feel free to check that out. And then nationally, we do those resources. Actually, people from all over the world check out those resources. We also do advocacy around literacy, adult literacy, and then Northstar is international. That's a little bit about us. Northstar, as a nonprofit, our mission is the same as yours or similar to yours, is to help people learn digital skills so that they can use them in work and in education and just kind of everything that you do on a daily basis. So as we think about that, think about all the things that people use digital skills for. Let's pretend that I am someone who I don't know how to use a computer. I don't know how to use a mouse. I've never gone online. I don't know how to send an email. What are some things that I cannot do? Things in life that I can't do. And you can either chat it or unmute. What can't I do without those basic digital skills? Let's see. Sign up for benefits. That's true. Almost all government benefits are now online. So it's very hard to get them if you don't know how to go online, like Social Security benefits, banking, right? So I won't be able to do online banking. So instead, if I wanted to deposit a check, I'd have to go drive to the bank, stand in line, wait for the teller, deposit it. So it's going to take me a lot more time and energy. I might not have great transportation. I might have little kids. So it's just, I can do it, but it's taking a lot more time. Get a grocery delivery. Yeah, right. So again, I don't have access to things that might come to my house and make it easier for me, especially if again I have other things competing for my time or my resources. Apply for a job. Almost all job applications are online as well as advertised online. Book a Greyhound trip. Almost every booking transportation. I was just thinking about that. I just bought a plane ticket and I was thinking if I didn't do this online, if I didn't have a phone, it would be much harder. You know, I could call someone, I guess, but then you go to the airport and it would just take a lot longer and a lot more steps. Get your doctor's visit summary, do telehealth, see community events, even see public transportation schedules. Yeah, so these are all great. Sorry if I missed some, but these are all great examples. Oh, Uber Eats. These are all great examples of, if I don't have these skills, I'm missing out on a lot of things that might make my life easier or might make things quicker or give me access to opportunity. If you think about it, your phone, if you have a question, you can just look it up on your phone. It's like a mini library in your hand. And if you don't have access to that, you're left out of even just finding a lot of information easily. All right. So let's go on. So, therefore, we want to teach these skills, right? And Northstar can help you do that. So, a little bit background around about Northstar. Northstar is internet based. So, as long as someone has a stable internet connection and a device, they can access Northstar from wherever they are. Um, Northstar includes assessments so people can see what they already know and where there's an opportunity to learn more, and then they can focus on, the new skills to learn. We have two educational tools in Northstar, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I would say it covers kind of foundational to mid-level computer skills. So foundational, I mean like how to turn on a computer, how to search the internet, how to send an email, up through mid-level skills like Word, PowerPoint, Excel that many people would use in an office setting. It's currently in English and Spanish. I have heard from learners who speak other languages that they have found Google Translate to be very helpful for translating the written words. It's written at a grade 4 reading level, so hoping to be as accessible to as many people as possible. If you are working with people who have a lower reading level, you can definitely use Northstar as kind of a guide. You're just going to have to go a lot slower and explain things in very, kind of more simple terms. And then there's a lot of reports. We'll look at a few that can help individuals see how they're doing, how they're progressing, and can help you see how individuals are doing, as well as how your entire agency, how much you're using Northstar and kind of the results of that. So as I said, we have the assessments, and then we have two types of educational materials that you can use either alone or in conjunction with one another. There is instructor-led curricula. So let's say you want to do a class, or maybe you're working one-on-one with people. This would help you. This is basically like a curriculum in the box. And then there's also self-paced online learning. So this is where learners can, for the most part, access it themselves and go at their own pace on their own time schedule to learn the skills. It's all connected. That's all connected by a learner management system, which then lets the learners see how they're doing and what they've accomplished, and then lets you see as staff see how they're doing in multiple reports. So, okay, so let's say I guess I should ask, how many of you have used Northstar in the past? You can raise your hand. Not too many. Okay, well, good. So, when someone asks me, I was just at a conference and people, came up to me and said, "What is Northstar?" I usually say my kind of 1 minute elevator pitch is internet-based platform that assesses and teaches foundational to mid-level digital skills. But this is a really good thing if you're going to use Northstar to think about how will you describe it quickly to someone who might come into your organization, into the library, and say, "Hey, what is this North Star?" It's helpful to have that one sentence, two sentence definition that meets, that sounds like you are the one saying it. So the important thing to know about North Star is that everything in North Star is linked through what we call standards. So we will take a look at this in a minute, but we currently have 18 different topics. And when we develop a topic, for each topic, we create the list of standards. And the standards are really the skills that we feel that you need to have to be competent in this area. Um, and the standards are very concrete, they're very testable. So once we create the standards, then we build the assessments to test the standards to see if someone knows them. And then we build the educational materials to make sure that they're teaching the standards. So let's take a look at so you can see what I mean by standards here. And so you can kind of get the idea of how to use them. So here we go. All right, so as I said, we have 18 different topics, which are all listed here. And let's look at using email just for today. And so one thing that's helpful, well, standards are kind of helpful for you in a lot of ways. One is if you're thinking about, well, what should I teach? The standards are kind of telling you what skills we feel are important to teach. And you can then see in each unit what skills are taught. So you might be trying to decide, do I teach internet basics or cybersecurity basics first? You can take a look at the standards and see, where the need is for the community you're working with. So you can see here, we're looking at the standards for using email, and you can see there's 13 standards. So now let's say I had someone, I know some of you are in libraries. Let's say I had someone who came into the library and they said to me, I'm emailing someone my resume and I need to know how to attach the resume. Can you help me? Which of these standards by number would teach that, would cover that? So I want to know how to attach my resume to an email. And you can put it, oh, I see some in the chat there. Standard 8, that's right. So here, standard 8, add an attachment to an email. All right, so let's say that I got the interview, and I thought it went well, and I wanted to send a follow-up email, but I wanted to be sure that, I wrote the email in kind of a professional way. So I was using proper etiquette. What standard would cover that? I want to write a professional email. Let's see. Standard 11, exactly. So understand basics of email etiquette, right? Great. Let's say that I wasn't sure. I got an email, and there was a bunch of people on the email, and I wasn't sure if I should just respond to the sender or to everyone on the email. What might help me? What standard number might help me with that? Standard 7, yes. Understand why and how to reply all and forward an email. So look at this. You guys are already rock stars. Okay. So this you can see if you're thinking about, people are asking you questions, you can come here and find out what standard might help me answer their question, or maybe I get that question a lot and I want to have a mini class or whatever it might be. just even looking at the standards can help you decide what you're going to do next. So, with that said, Northstar has a lot in it, and you can use it in multiple ways. And when I'm talking to people who haven't used it much, they want to know, well, what's a typical way? So know that you can make this your own, and so it fits the needs of your agency and of your library and of your participants. But one way that a lot of organizations use Northstar is they'll first give an assessment as kind of a pre-assessment so that they can see, learners can see what they already know, where there's an opportunity to learn more and what that is that they should be learning. So then either you'll review the results with them or they'll review them on their own, and then you'll provide the education. So it could be through those instructor-led classes or mini classes. It could be a one-on-one tutor or a digital navigator. Um, or it could be that the learner is working on the self-guided online lessons on their own. Or it can be a combo of all those three. So again, whatever is going to fit the needs of your community and your education. Once they've gone through your education, your community and your organization, and once they've gone through the education, then you're going to give them that same assessment and see if there's been improvement. Now, you can always proctor an assessment, and if you proctor something, that means that someone on staff, one of you, um, digital navigators, is watching the person take the assessment just to be sure they're not using notes or having someone help them. And if someone passes the assessment and it's proctored, then you can give them a certificate. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, and you can see what the certificates look like. But oftentimes that after they've gone through the education and they're doing that second assessment, agencies will proctor them. So here are our 18 different assessment topics. All right, you can see the three bolded kind of groupings. So one is essential computer skills, one is essential software, one is using technology in daily life. Which one, you can call them either computer, software, or daily, so you don't have to type the whole thing. But which category do you see cybersecurity basics in? Daily life, yes, in this last column here. How about using email? What category is that in? The computer skills, the software, or the daily life? Essential computer skills, that's right. How about social media? Technology and daily life, exactly. All right, so you can see that we kind of broke these topics up just to make it a little bit easier to look at, really. So what we have here, the one important thing to know is that no one person has to take all 18 different assessments. It really depends on what their goals are, what your goals as a organization are. Um, so it may be that, it doesn't make sense for someone to take supporting K-12 distance learning or Mac OS. You can, a person, maybe they just come into the library, and we had a learner who wanted to, he had a job and he wanted a promotion, but in order to get the promotion, he needed to know Excel. So he came in, learned Excel, passed and got the certificate, and then went to his supervisor and, said, hey, I know Excel, and ended up getting the promotion. So that was the point at where he came to use Northstar. We've had other people who have passed all 18 topics and wish there were more. So it kind of depends on the person. But if I will say that if we look under essential computer skills, the basic computer, internet basics, and using email, those three are the most frequently given. Because if someone can't pass those, it's very difficult to do any of the other topics. So those are your kind of benchmarks, I will say, for really beginning digital literacy. The phone keyboard basics and logging in, this is almost pre-digital literacy. So it was made for people who may not be familiar with the English alphabet and are needing to create a password. So it's going through, what's the difference between a capital T and a lowercase t? What is a number? What is a exclamation point? So really kind of that pre-digital literacy almost. Under essential software, these are more skills that you would find in the workplace. And then using technology in daily life, you know what probably most of these are. Information literacy, this is how to, not like how to actually search, but how to use your critical thinking skills to ask questions so you get relevant information that's reliable. And although this was created kind of before AI took off, a lot of what's taught in here is relevant to asking questions of AI as well, like ChatGTP, thinking about how you ask the question to get an answer that's going to be, kind of be on task to what you're really looking for. Career search skills is what it sounds like. Your digital footprint, this is, just if you go online and you do something online, other people can see it. You want to be aware of that and you want to know how to change that if possible. And if not, you want to be careful about what you put online. Uh, for example, if you're applying for a job, you probably don't want to put pictures of yourself on social media getting really drunk, for example. Supporting K-12 distance learning. This was created for parents to help their kids during the pandemic. But we found that many people who are going on to, let's say, community college and need to use distance learning platforms and who may not know it benefit from going through this topic. And then the other two are pretty straightforward. So those are just all the topics. You don't have to memorize them, but those that you start using a lot, you'll get to know pretty well. So here's an example. So like I said, the first thing we want to do typically is give someone an assessment so we can see, what it is they already know and where they can learn some new material. And the assessments they're not theoretical. They really require you to perform the skills so that we know that, the person knows how to do them. So here's an example of one of the questions from the Accessing Telehealth Appointments. And you can see that it says, the doctor cannot hear Lewis, click the button to fix the problem. So what would I do if I were to answer this question correctly? What should I do here? I, I, I would need to unmute, that's right. So I would have to click on the unmute on the microphone there. So that means I have to, I have to know that I know there is a problem. I would have to recognize, I would have to figure out what the problem is and then how to solve it in order to get this question right. Okay, so now I want to give you all an opportunity to take one of the assessments. Um, it's really good practice to take the assessments yourself for anything that you're going to teach. And the reasons for that, or even help people with, the reasons for that is one, it's going to let you see what the assessment is like so you can talk about it to the learner. Two, a lot of times I'll find that people feel maybe they don't really know how to teach the topic or they're not even sure that they know the topic. So by going through the assessment yourself, you can see if you have any gaps in your knowledge, and then you can learn it yourself before you are going to teach the learners. And we all have gaps in our digital literacy knowledge. It's really, I mean, it's changing all the time, so it's lifelong learning anyway. But a lot of us taught ourselves digital skills, so we might just not have had to do everything that are in the assessments. And I have not yet met anyone who's passed all 18 assessments with 100% the first time, even those in IT. So it just goes to show that it is an ongoing learning process. And then the last reason and then you may want to take an assessment just for your own professional development if it's something that you've always wanted to know more about. So we're going to take the assessments. You're going to get to pick which one you want to take, and I'll show you how to do this. Um, so you all have access to the Northstar subscription, but we're going to actually take the assessments on the free version. They are the same assessments. They are the only difference is there's no reporting with them. So once you take the assessment, unless you write down your score or take a screenshot, even Northstar won't know what you got. So I'm going to click on this and show you where you're going to go, and I'll put it in the chat actually. It's easiest. But you can always find our homepage for any reason by, digital literacy assessment.org, or you can just type in Northstar Digital Literacy and you'll find it. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Don't go there yet because I want to just show you what you're going to do. So when you are click that link, you're going to scroll down. You'll see on the left-hand side, it says assessments, and there's this green oval here, try an assessment now. You'll click on it, and then you're going to see all 18 different assessments here. You can choose whatever assessment you want to take. I'm going to give you all 7 minutes. You may not finish. Some of them are a little bit longer than others, but I mostly want you to get the idea of what it's like. And there is audio. So if you are in a place where you don't want audio to play, at the bottom, I'll show you this really quickly. Well, you'll go through it. You don't have to listen to the cello music. You can click next. You can skip the orientation. It will say start now. And I'm going to click on the desktop. You can see there's audio. But the way you can turn off the audio is in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see the 3 navigation button, or there's actually 4 navigation buttons there. And then the one that looks kind of like the speaker, if you click it and have the X by it, the audio will be off. Should you need to do that. If not, I highly recommend keeping it on. Okay, so if you are ready to go, then go ahead and click on the link I put in the chat and get started on whatever assessment you want to take. It is now, I know you're all probably in different time zones, so it's 28 after the hour is what I have. So we'll go till 35 after the hour, and I'll give you a warning when we have a minute left. You don't have to tell me your score, but when you're done, if you could just put in the chat which topic you took. So that way I kind of know people are finishing up. So go ahead and get started. And if you have any questions at all about what you're doing or how to do it, please let me know. Okay, and we have about a minute left. So if you are finishing up, please just let me know what assessment you took, so I know you're done. And again, some of them take longer than others, so don't worry if you're not done. All right, I'm gonna keep talking just in the interest of time, but if you're again, if you're not done, it's fine. I do see that we have a couple different I always love to see what topics people pick. And we had using email, internet basics, basic computer skills, Word. It's just fun to see all the different things that you all decide to take. Um, yes, and this is a good point in the chat. Internet safety uh, is part of using email. It's also, you'll find it in basic internet, and then the cybersecurity basics kind of takes it to the next level, I guess. Um, Social media, someone took. Great. Using email. Okay. All right. So hopefully you saw that as you took the assessments, again, there's the audio, there's the written words. You have to kind of perform the skill on the screen. You can always choose to not answer the question if it's saying I don't know, and then you're given the opportunity at the end if you want to change an answer, if you got that far. So, um, for those of you who did finish, you notice that you got this results page that I'm showing, or a results page like this. And does anyone know, even though most of you haven't used Northstar, anyone know what the passing score for Northstar is? Any guesses? I see one guess. Oh, 80%, a little bit higher. That's a good guess. It's a little bit higher, is 85% is the passing. Yep, that's right, 85%. All right. So you can see that you get your score. It will say if you passed or not. But what's more important, or what is equally as important, is on the bottom, you can see what standards were passed in the green column on the left, and then what standards still need to be worked on in the gray column on the right. So if you're looking at my screen, what standard number did I miss? Looking at my results page, you can see that I missed one standard that's showing at least here. Standard 9, exactly. So I missed that. I missed the standard about filling in an online form. Now I passed the test, right? But let's say I am going to be applying for jobs and I think, I really need to know how to fill out an online form. I can go right to the practice lessons just to that standard. So, I passed this whole internet basics topic. I don't need to do the whole lesson. I just want to focus on that one standard. And so I can do that by going to the right of that number 9, and you'll see the barbell there and it says practice. If I click on that, I'm going to go right to that spot in the lesson. Now, let's say my score was lower and I wanted to, and I probably should do the entire lesson. And by lesson, I'm talking about the practice lessons that I can do on my own. Um, so if I wanted to do the whole lesson, the clue is that you're looking for another barbell. Does anyone see that other barbell where I could go to learn the whole lesson, go through the whole lesson? And if so, what does it say? So I'm looking for the other barbell. We saw the practice barbell down here by number 9, just to go to standard 9. But if I want to do the whole lesson, where on this page do you see the other barbell? Let's see, go to ENSOL, exactly. So right here in the middle, you can see that it says kind of in the middle upper, there's a gray barbell with the white letters that say go to ENSOL. ENSOL is our acronym for Northstar Online Learning. So if someone wanted to go right from this results page to the practice lessons, they could easily do so. Now, you don't have to. You can always come back to them at some other point, or maybe someone's taking a class and they're not going to do the practice lessons. But I have found that a lot of people, it's kind of a game in a way, and maybe they're like me and they want to get 100%, or they just want to start their learning. So again, you all wouldn't have seen that in the free version. You can't go to the practice lessons. But when someone takes it through your subscription, they can. Okay, great. So we said passing score is 85%. If this test was unproctored, meaning no one was kind of watching over the person, and that person passed, they could still get a digital badge. So kind of like a micro credential. Looks like this picture I have here, this hexagon. This is the one for using email. And and digital badges are often, you've probably heard of stackable credentials. They're often used, you can kind of store them in a digital backpack, but they're often used to put on LinkedIn or social media, just to say you have the skill maybe on your resume. If the person passed and it was proctored, they'd also get a digital badge. It would say that it was proctored. And you could also print a certificate and give it to them, or you could email it to them kind of as a PDF attachment, assuming they knew how to open an email with a PDF. And we initially kind of created these badges and certificates so that people could show potential employers what skills they had. And as I said, I don't know if I said this, but we have like 3,100 subscribing organizations across the United States and internationally. And I hear from learners all over the place that because they passed the assessments, they had the certificates, that they were able to get the jobs, partially because of that, they were able to get the jobs they wanted. It's especially helpful to people who haven't worked in a while. So maybe either they were taking care of family members or they had been incarcerated. It could be people who this was their first job ever or their first job in this country, or people who are maybe moving from more of a labor type job to a desk type job. Their resume may not look like they have the digital skills, but having these certificates and being able to talk about them shows that they do. What we found, though, that was way more important than even that is how much confidence getting these certificates gives people. I've had people, well, so you may know that people who have lower digital skills, they're often kind of afraid of the computer. They're afraid they're going to break it, they're afraid they're going to do something wrong. I think they're often afraid that they won't actually be able to learn the skills. So when they pass this assessment and they get, this objective piece of paper saying they know what they're doing, I've had people give me high fives. Sometimes they start crying. People will go out and buy frames and put them up in their homes. It's very meaningful to people, and it kind of helps them see that if they put the time and energy into learning the skills, it does make a difference. And that helps them persist in learning other skills and more skills, whether it's related to digital literacy or outside of digital literacy. So here's an example of one of the students who was at our school, and you can see he's holding a bunch of the certificates in his hand. His story, he said we could share his story. His story is that he had been an auto mechanic his entire career and just got to a point where he physically couldn't do the job anymore. Wanted to stay in the industry, but didn't have the digital skills to do so. So he came to our school and he ended up passing all of the assessments at the time. And more importantly for him, he then was able to apply for a job at Napa Auto Parts and get the job as kind of one of the people behind the desk. So great story for us to kind of be a part of a little bit. So just to recap, people, they use the assessments to kind of as a pre-assessment so they can determine what someone knows and where there's room for more knowledge. They also use it to prepare their staff. So I highly recommend if you're going to be working with learners for you that you take the assessments that match up with what they're going to be learning. You can take other assessments just for your own professional development, like maybe you don't know Excel and you've always wanted to learn Excel. And the assessments, if you pass 85%, people can get a badge. And if it's proctored and they pass, they can get a certificate. And just so you know, the proctoring can be done and the assessments can be taken either in person or remotely. So um, pretty easy to use in both cases. Any questions that you have about the assessments before we kind of look at the different educational materials? If you're writing something in the chat, keep writing. I'm just going to move on. And I'm going to talk now about the instructor-led curricula. So this would be, something that's kind of written out for you. It's out of the box. Look at how you can teach something. And you can use it in a classroom. You can use it for one-on-one instruction. Like everything, it's aligned with those Northstar standards. And I want to, and it's really easy to use. So as we look a little bit at it today and more in depth in our next trainings, it's, it tells you what you're going to teach, how to teach it, how to describe things, what to do. It gives you all the handouts and all the reference material. It gives you all the answer sheets. So it comes, as a complete package. And then you're going to make it, you can either follow it exactly or you can make it your own, depending on, how you might say things or depending on the people in the classroom. It's a roadmap that you can either follow exactly or kind of use it to guide your own teaching. It's also very learner-centered, created for adults with topics we thought they might enjoy. And our philosophy at Northstar is that you can't really learn digital literacy through lecture or watching videos. You really have to get in there and practice the skills in order to learn them. So it's very interactive and there's a lot of opportunity for repetition. So much so that when I first taught this, I thought that people might be a little bored by doing the same thing over and over again, but they loved it because it helped them gave them that practice so they felt really competent in the skill. And of course, if you notice that people are ready to move on, you can always do that. Excuse me. So the curriculum, you could use it for like a full-on semester class if you wanted to. Each unit topic has 8 lesson plans on average, and each lesson plan takes about 2 hours. So you could have a 16-hour class, over several weeks if you wanted. But a lot of times programs don't have that much time. So they might have an 2 hours total. And so the nice thing is that it's customizable. So you can use the assessments to determine what you need to teach. And then you can kind of modify the lessons to fit into whatever time you have and supplement with those self-guided practice lessons as well. The lessons are all independent. So again, if you wanted to just pull, like someone mentioned in the chat, in the using email topic, there was a standard related to kind of scams or spam or staying safe online. Let's say you just wanted to teach that in kind of a mini lesson, you could pull that out. You won't have to do the rest of the lesson. We also do have like a final unit project that takes like a paragraph or two of reading and then all the skills that the person learned and asks them to use both of those to create like a real world project that is outlined for them. So it gives people, a lot of times people will say, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? And so this is something else they can do to give them an idea of how they might use the skills they just learned in something in their daily life. And just like the assessments, you can use the curriculum for teaching people in person or teaching them remotely. Easy to do both. So the people who wrote the curriculum have all taught adult learners, and they pulled in best practices, looked at research on best practices for how adults learn, and then used that information to create the lesson. I will answering the question in the chat. Yeah, I can send the slides out to you. So you don't have to worry. Oh, I should say that. Thanks for saying that. Not only for that, but I'm giving you a lot of information today. Don't worry about writing it all down. I mostly want you to know in broad categories kind of what's in Northstar, and start for you to start thinking about what makes sense for your organization to use and how you might use it. All right, but I will send the slides to Josh. All right, so every lesson starts with a warm up. We know adults have a lot of wisdom and we want to tap into that wisdom. They have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. And so, as instructors, by doing this warm up, we get people talking, but we can also see what they know. And that lets us see where, kind of where they're at and how we might take what they know and bridge it to what we're teaching them. There's also a section called We Will Learn. These are the objectives. Adults really like to know what they're going to learn and how it's relevant to them. And then we go into model and explain. So the model that Northstar uses, we call it I do. So I, as the instructor, do perform the skill to show everyone. We do as a class, we all do it together, and I'm kind of helping, and everyone's helping each other. And then you do, which means the individual does it themselves. So they get a lot of practice, they get a lot of repetition, and then ultimately they're doing it on their own. So the first piece where I, as an instructor, do it is called the model and explain. Then we do it together as a class. I might pair up people. If someone's understanding it and someone's not yet, it's good to pair those two up to give them both the one to get more practice and the one who already knows it to get practice teaching it. And that kind of cements it even more. Then you'll give everyone the chance to do it on their own. We always include vocabulary because a lot of times all of us know how to do things, but we may not know the exact terminology. But also we want to make sure that we're not talking to people using jargon and they're not understanding what it means. And then they're kind of like convinced that they're not going to be able to understand this topic. So by teaching the vocabulary in a way that they're introduced to the words and the meaning, it helps people to learn the skills and to also feel more confident in the skills. And then the lesson wraps up where you check for comprehension to be sure that people understood what you were trying to teach them. So looking at it, here's what the first page of any lesson would look like. It tells you what standards are on in this particular lesson. It tells you what vocabulary words you'll be teaching, and Northstar will give you the definitions and how to teach them. The technology concepts lets you know kind of what this is about, what this lesson is about, and gives you any teaching tips that you might not know. And then the teacher prep guide, this tells you what you're going to need to kind of prepare beforehand so that you're ready to teach the class. As we look into it a little bit, you can see with the warm-up that I was talking about, we tell you how to do it. We give you the questions to ask. We will learn, these are those objectives. We provide you with the objectives that you can share with the learners. And then here's an example of model and explain. So you see that it actually gives you the words to say and how to describe what you're doing and what you're teaching. And this is great because it ensures consistency across your program. A lot of us, like I said, we know how to do something, but we might not know the proper terminology. And also, as I mentioned, if you use jargon, when you're teaching something, let's say how to use a mouse. Probably most of us on this call have done that for a really long time. Now you just forget all the small things that are involved in teaching how to use a mouse. And you might use jargon or you might describe it in a way that you assume someone knows something and they don't. And that's going to convince a person who's already maybe feeling a little fearful that this isn't for them and they're just going to tune out. So we want to try and meet the people where they're at in their digital learning. And so this is what providing the words for you does. Here's an example of a handout. So you could again see that it was teaching how to determine if an email is safe or not. And here's an example of just practicing that. How do I read these emails and determine if they're safe or not, learn using what I just learned. So that is the kind of the overview of the instructor-led curriculum. We're going to go on to the look at the practice lessons that people can kind of do on their own. But if you have any questions, please let me know by putting it in the chat or unmuting. Before I do that, I'll give you a chance. Otherwise, we'll go on. Okay. So we just looked at, we looked at taking the assessment first, finding out what you want to teach based on what people need to know. You could teach a class. You could use what I just showed you to teach one-on-one, kind of pulling those worksheets and how you describe it to someone. And then what I'm going to show you next are the self-guided practice lessons that someone can pretty much do on their own. You might need to help them get started and orient them to it. Sometimes navigators will work with someone where they're both looking at the practice lessons and kind of going through them together. So however it makes sense for you and the learner is great. It's just another way of teaching and learning the skills. So I want to show you what it looks like. It's the easiest for me to just show you an example of a piece of one of the lessons. So we're going to go here. You will hear the audio and you'll see the screen. It'll take just a second.
One click of the left mouse button selects the object you're pointing at, like a link or a button on a website. To perform the same action on a touchpad or touchscreen, tap once.
So this is the basic computer skills. It's one of the, teaching the standard of the one click. And so you can see it's kind of a video that with some instruction on it. Sometimes the slides will have just things that you read. And then there'll also be, because I said that we feel you can't learn through lecture alone, there'll be places to practice the skill. So here we learned of what a single click is, and now we're going to practice that. So when I click on the next button, you'll see what that practice looks like.
Try it. Every time this character appears on the screen, click on it. You will need to click it 4 times. Ready? Click the character you see now to start.
So anytime in the practice lessons, you see our little barbell right under the Northstar logo there where it says try it. That means it's something where a person is practicing those skills they just learned. Now, if I was a learner and I said, I don't feel like doing this, and I clicked on next, it would say, no, you can't do that. You actually have to do the practice. So again, I'm practicing clicking and actually moving the mouse too. And once I do it, I'm told, hey, you did a good job. I'm going to turn this off and turn the sound off as I'm talking to you. So in the practice lessons, the way they're kind of organized is that for each topic, and again, this is basic computer skills, you'll have 3 or 4 different sections. And each section will cover several standards and with the instructional material and the practice material. And then there'll be a little quiz, like 3 or 4 questions to make sure that the person understands the concepts. It will tell them if they got the answers wrong, and if they did, it will kind of redirect them to review that same material again. Or it might give them a clue as to what the right answer should be, or it might even tell them the right answer with an explanation. So the purpose of the practice lessons is, to learn. Once they go through the practice lessons and they've kind of passed those little quizzes, then it will say that they're ready to take the real assessment again. Now, learners, they get to see how they're doing on these practice lessons through what we call the learner dashboard. So what they get to see looks like this as soon as I log in. My login is different than a learner's would be. But what they see is this. So here you can see I have all 18 different topics. And if we look at, let's look at these 6. You can see that some of them have these 2 rings. And what these rings mean, if we look at, let's look at the career search skills. The outer ring, that darker blue ring, that's showing me how well I did on the assessment. So looking at that ring, what do you think I got? Because it's a full circle. What do you think I got on that assessment? Out of what percentage? 100%, exactly. So you see a full circle, it means I got 100%. And then the inner ring, that lighter blue ring, that's telling me how much of the practice lessons I completed. So here you can see it's a little bit more than half. If you see, like in career search skills, you see a hexagon in the middle, that means also that I passed the assessment. So if we look at some of these other ones, which you see duplicates here. It says email old and email. That's because I'm on staff, so I have access to the first version of email versus what's out there now. The second, learners would only see the current email. But anyway, as you're looking at these 6, which 3 did I pass? You're looking for that hexagon in the middle. So I passed 3 of these 6. Which ones were they? Computer basics, email old, and Windows 11. Yes, very good. Very good. Of the 3 that I passed, you can see that email old is in color. So that means whenever you see it in color versus gray and white, that means that it was proctored. And so I could get that certificate. So now let's say Windows 10, you can see I did not pass and I want to work on the lessons. If I click on lessons, here you see the 2 rings again, and to the right of them, you see the barbells where it says start practice. So if I clicked on that and I was just starting this, it would start me at the beginning. I've done some of the lessons, so it would pick up where I left off. So it remembers what I've done and I don't have to start over. It will bring me back to where I started or where I left off. Then if I come down here, there's some different tabs. And if I go to the standards tab, if I took the assessment, I can see what standards I missed. And if there are, 5 or less, I would say, I could just practice the individual standards. So I won't have to go through the whole lesson. I could just practice the standards I missed. Looking at the 4 that I missed, what standard have I already done the practice for? What number? Standard 8. Yeah, that's right. So you see it says practice complete. Now, as an instructor, as one of you, I can also see how people are doing. So now I want to show you the report that instructors can see. So here the learner is Teresa. And under the word module, these are all the 18 different topics. And if I hover over the icon, it will tell me, like the globe stands for Internet Basics. Then if I look at best score, I can see what this person's best score was. And so I can see for Internet Basics that they got 92.9% and they tried to take it once. You can take an assessment multiple times. You can take it as many times as you want. You can only take it twice in one day, though. So we don't want someone just kind of sitting there taking it time after time, just guessing it, figuring out what the right answers are. We want them to actually know the skills. If you look under practice lesson, it tells you how much this person has completed of the practice lessons. So in this case, for Internet Basics, it was 50%. And under badge, if you see that hexagon again, it means that they've passed. And if it's in color, they pass it in a proctored environment. And if you see the word certificate, it means that you could print out the certificate for them. In Northstar, whenever you see this little I on the left there, you see that I in the circle, it means there's more information, more reports behind it. So if I click on that I can then see what standards this person missed. And then over on the right, I can see under practice status, I can see if they've completed the practice for that standard or not. And then if I scroll all the way down and click on the I on the bottom here, you don't have to remember this other than the fact that you can do it. And scroll down further, I can see what questions they missed. So if I feel like, I feel like this person really understands this standard, I don't know why they're maybe not passing or getting some questions right, I can go ahead and take a look at the questions. So I see, okay, they missed question 6 and question 26. And I don't expect that you're going to remember, even I don't remember what question 26 is on Internet Basics. So if you click on the square, it will bring up the question and it will tell you what standard. It's standard 9, fill out an online form. Then I can see the question. So it might be that maybe the one of the words in the question the person doesn't understand, or maybe the question is saying, click all the appropriate answers and they're only choosing one. So you can give you some insight as to what might be going on. I would never teach to the test because we really do want them to understand the skills, but it can, just give you some insights to better help this person learn this topic. The other thing that may or may not matter to your organization is that Northstar does track what we call time on task. So it will track how many minutes and hours someone is spending on those online practice lessons when they're not, when you're not watching them do it. And sometimes for organizations, that's important for funding. Sometimes you just want to know how much it's being used. So when someone is doing the practice lessons, if there's no activity on the screen for 10 minutes, then it will stop counting. So I could get up and go to the bathroom and, come back and work on it. But if I got up and took my dog for a walk, it would just stop counting that time after 10 minutes. Any questions about any of that before we move on? Okay. So in order for people to access those practice lessons and to kind of have better reporting on the assessments, you would add them to your Northstar Learner Management System. And it's very easy to do. You just need a first name, a last name, and an email address. Now, I know of some of the people that you're working with, they don't have the digital skills and they don't use email. It's okay, if you create an email address for them, they don't have to know how to use it. They don't have to use it yet. They just need it as a way to sign into the system. You can add the learners to the system yourself, or you can allow for them to sign up on their own if they have the digital skills to do that. You can also add learner accounts in bulk. So if you have a whole class that's starting, you can just upload that spreadsheet and then all those learner accounts will be created at one time. The other important thing to know about kind of Northstar and the reporting is that the default in Northstar is that the reports will show you everyone that you have in your learner management system. And sometimes that's what you want to see. You want to see everything you've been doing. But there may be other times where you don't want to see everything. You just want to see a subset. So maybe there's several instructors at your organization. You only want to see the people that you're working with. Or maybe you have different projects and they have different funding streams and you want to separate people out by the project that they're on. Maybe you want to look at zip codes. Whatever it is, you can run those sub-reports by creating tags on those learner accounts. So the tags can be whatever makes sense to your organization. The only thing that Northstar doesn't allow is you can't do personally identifiable information. So you couldn't put in social security numbers, driver's license numbers, birth dates. But other than that, you can create whatever tags you want to run multiple sub-reports. So very flexible on the reporting end. And then some of these, there are a lot of individual reports. I showed you one. But then there's some also big picture reports that let you see what's going on at your organization. So I want to show you some examples of those. So what we're going to look at first, it's called the dashboard. And you can see here on top under where it says filter, it shows you how many learners are at this organization, how many hours they've spent on the practice lessons and on the assessments, how many assessments you've given, what percentage has been passed. The assessment gains are important because this is showing you from the first time someone took an assessment to the last time they took it, how much they learned, how much they improved. It shows you how many people are claiming badges and if you're awarding certificates or not. Then if we look at the summary report, on the lower, it was kind of toward the bottom. This circle graph, I'll make it bigger, is showing me how many assessments of and what type have been given at my organization. And if I hover over the piece of the pie, I can get the exact number. So here, let's say I was, well, one, you can tell funders what you're doing and your community what you're doing. Two, let's say we were letting people take whatever assessment they wanted. And we could see that, a lot of people are taking Windows. Not that many are taking Mac OS. So maybe we decide, let's have a class on Windows. And the people who are interested in Mac OS, they can do it more on their own in the practice lessons. If we scroll down and look at this bar graph, this is showing us what percentage of each assessment has been passed. So I can see that for this group of people, quite a few are passing the email assessment, 66%. Whereas PowerPoint, not that many, 35%. So maybe I say, well, if we have people who take the assessment initially and they don't pass email, something that seems fairly easy for this population to learn. So maybe we'd have them learn it through the practice lessons. Where PowerPoint seems more difficult. So maybe we should have them, have a class on that or work with a navigator on that because it's more difficult. So it can just help inform how you spend your teaching time and energy. The other kind of reports you can see are the detailed reports. And here it breaks it out by topic. So you can see some of that same information for all these different topics, basic computer skills, internet basics, etc. And then if we click on the view report, I'll do basic computer skills. I can see some of that. I can see the average duration here, the fourth one down. And that can help you decide, if you are going to proctor, how much time you might need. So if the average duration to take this assessment is 12 minutes, you might want to add on, 5 minutes to explain it, 5 minutes for people who might take longer. So maybe you're giving half an hour. You're giving yourself half an hour to have people take this assessment if you're going to proctor it. If we scroll down and we look at the question performance, I can see which questions this group of people is having the most problems with. So as you look at that chart, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but which one are a lot of people having trouble with? What number? So a lot of people got it wrong. Question 20, right. So you can see this, how big the red bar is there. Then if I scroll down, I can see, again, all the questions. And the ones that are that people are having trouble with have a brown, whoops, just moving my controls here. We'll have, as soon as I find it, we'll have a brown triangle indicating, a lot of people are getting this question wrong. So I can see question 20 is about standard 13, and I can see what it's about, right? This is the standard here, how to customize a computer for better accessibility. If I want to look at the question, I can click on the words that are underlined, and this brings up the question. And we actually did this because I went in and saw that, question 20, a lot of people were getting wrong. So I wanted to investigate why that was. And you can see in this question, the word that is used is accessibility, if you see the little person there. What was happening, the people taking this, a lot of them were English language learners. And in the curriculum, the word that's used is accessible. And they were maybe newer to learning English, and they didn't understand that the word accessible and the word accessibility are related. So they weren't understanding how to answer this question. So it wasn't really so much about their digital skills, it was more about their language skills. So then the teachers went in and just made sure that they understood that grammar. So it can help you kind of help inform you as to what might be difficult for people you're working with and why that might be. So the reports, they're very, I am a data geek and I find them really, really interesting to look at and kind of see um, what people are doing and how the agency is doing. So if we talk about, again, people having access to the Northstar admin portal, the way it's set up is at each of your locations or each of your organizations, you'll have 2 to 3 Northstar administrators someone on staff there. And their role is that they can add and delete the rest of you into the admin portal. So they can add staff and volunteers into the admin portal. And there's a few organization-wide parameters that they can set as well. The other 3 roles in Northstar, one is staff. So that would be anyone who wants to get into the admin portal to run reports, to use the curriculum, to add learners. The people who are called staff would be able to do all of that. Proctors are people who've gone through like a 15, 20-minute online training and then answered some questions on how to proctor. And so once they have done that, answered the questions correctly, then they're given a special proctor code that lets them proctor. And then, of course, the last group of people are the learners who are using Northstar. So all of you, if you're going to join us for training 2, you should have access to your Northstar admin portal. If you don't yet, I would suggest that you reach out to whoever is the Northstar admin at your site and make sure that they add you in, because it's just going to be a little bit better for you if you have access to the Northstar admin portal when we do training 2.
And hey, Teresa, just to jump in real quick,
Yeah.
um, some people may not have signed up for
Mm.
Northstar just yet. So maybe towards the end, before we hop off, maybe you can just walk them through, or just, I know it may be pretty straightforward, but just to be safe. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Right. If you don't have access yet, you would need to get access first to or sign up for Northstar. Okay. Then as we go along, I'm going to do this training for you, but then let's say 2 months later, you have a question. We do have an online help desk, and it's really an email that's sent to the entire team. There's about 5 of us total on the team. And whoever is first available and best able to answer the question will answer it. Honestly, it's not often me just because I'm presenting all the time, but my colleagues are really great and they'll answer your question. So if you can't figure out how to do something, if something's not working, or even if you have a suggestion for how Northstar could be improved, we love to hear that. We, as a nonprofit, maybe can't do it right away, but we have a list of everything people say, all the improvements they recommend, and then as we hear that same recommendation multiple times, it kind of goes up further on the list, and then ultimately we find the funding and the time to do those things that reach the top. So love to have your feedback. All right, so let's kind of do a little review here, and I will also tell you if you don't have Northstar, how you can get it. Anyone remember? Here's your time for your quiz. How many assessment topics are there? Anyone remember? If you think back to when you took the assessment and you had all those choices, let's go back to that slide and you can see. How many are there? $18. There are 18. The next one we'll be working on, the 19th, will be AI. So every time I'm talking to groups, everyone wants to have an AI topic. So that will be next. Probably by the end of this year, I'm hoping. Okay, sorry for quickly going through here, but let's get back to our questions. What is the passing score? 85% is the passing score. And then there is a question in the chat. Any plans for mobile specific assessments? So I am guessing that you mean by mobile specific, you mean like how to use a phone? Is that what you mean? The topic would be kind of how to use a mobile phone? And the answer, if that is the topic, the answer would be no. We have built in some, as we've been revising things, we do include more about performing the skills on a phone. We have created some really short videos on like how to download an app, for example, how to use, well, Zoom, that's not specific to a mobile device, I guess. So we're trying to build those more into it, but at the moment, no plans for something specific to how to use a phone. But it is something that does get asked about, and I'll let the team know that you asked, and it's on the list for sure. It's just not next. Good question. All right. Here's our third question. Do you have to proctor? You do not have to proctor. So if you don't want to ever proctor any assessment, your agency doesn't have to do it. What is the benefit to proctoring if someone passes an assessment? They can get a certificate. The other benefit is just that, it keeps the assessment more valid, right? Because you know that they're not using notes. But all right. How about what does NSOL stand for? You get credit if you get any of the letters. Northstar Online Learning. That's right. Northstar Online Learning. Great. Okay. How about, let's see. Name one thing you can find in a Northstar report. What are on those reports? What's one thing that one metric that you could look at? I can go back and show you an example of one. All right, so what's one of the things that I could look at this report and report out to my community or my funders? Learning hours, right? How many hours the people that are using Northstar, how many hours they spent on it? Number of badges or certificates, badges claimed, yes, all great things. One of the things we want to make sure with digital literacy, with anything, but a lot of times those who are making funding decisions or policy decisions are looking at numbers and stats. So very good to have that at your disposal. Okay. Oops. What does anyone remember? I said this at the very beginning. Anyone remember what grade level Northstar is written for? Fourth grade. Oh, good listening skills there. And what two languages is Northstar in currently? English and Spanish. That's right. We actually right now we were given a grant to the real purpose of the grant is to look at using AI to do translation because otherwise it's quite expensive. Just Northstar, we created it ourselves and it's proprietary, so it's very expensive to translate into other languages, but we get asked about that a lot. So we're looking at the feasibility of using AI to do the audio translation, seeing how well it sounds and if it's accurate. And this particular grant was for us to do some of the topics, the basic computer internet basics, and using email into Somali. So that's a big language here in Minnesota. That's where the grant came from. And so we're looking at that, but we're hopeful that it ultimately will help us to use AI to do this quicker and faster and cheaper so that more languages can be added into Northstar. All right. Now let's say I have someone who reads at a second grade reading level. Can I still use Northstar for them? Or aspects of Northstar, I should say. The answer is I can. So you can look at the standards so you know what to teach. You can look at some of the vocabulary. Um, you can get an idea of even just how to describe things, even though you might need to simplify it a lot. And then in the last question, what modalities and situations can the curriculum be used? By that I mean, I don't know how to ask the question without giving it away with the answer. What maybe you're going to answer it for me in the classroom and how else? So I can use it in the classroom. Do I have to have everyone present in the classroom to use it? Do we have to physically be there? I can do virtual and it can be self-paced. Great. You all answered the question, even though I really didn't know how to ask it. So great. Okay. Any questions that you have? If you are an organization that does not yet have Northstar, I will you can reach us at this email and I'll put this in the chat. I'm just gonna do this so I can copy it off this screen. But you can you can say that you talked, you had this training with Teresa, it will get to me, and then I will help you do that, help your organization do that. So let me put it in the chat for you. And if you already do have Northstar and you just personally don't have access to it, then ask your administrator and they can add you. So, but there's the email for you. Any other questions that you have kind of right now, just as looking at all we've talked about? You see something in the oh, can you just subscribe through the website or is there an advantage to emailing? You can just subscribe through the website if you want, although it may be that rural LISC may pay for your subscription. Not exactly sure. So that would be the one thing you might want to look at. Okay. I would guess I personally would first just say, if you're with that or with one of the partners, mention it, and then we can reach out to them to see how that will work. Right. Like Josh says, they provided the funds for the East Texas program, for example. All right, so the next time we meet, we're going to look at kind of how to do some of the things in Northstar. So I've now told you what's in Northstar, but we'll see, how do you go about adding learners? How do I do proctoring? What does the curriculum look like more in depth? How do I do the tagging? So you can get a sense of, I think, how easy it is, but how easy it is, how much time it might take, who on your staff might be the person who does that, or maybe everyone does that. So that will give you some insights as to that. And then the third training that we're going to have, that will be more about best practices for teaching adults digital skills. We'll use Northstar as the example, but it's really broader than that. It's kind of could be transferred to any program, whether you have Northstar or not. So with that, thank you all I'm going to stop sharing here so I can see you or your name. And thank you all for joining me and for having me. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, almost to the weekend here. So, and I will see you next week, I think, right?